Thank you all for joining us. My name is Gary Parker. I'm the Managing Director of CNT Associates, and we are a business support, fundraising, and digital services company based in Southeast London. And this morning, we're going to look at the very large area of public procurement. We'll give it another minute and then we're going to start. So thank you all for joining us. Others may join us on the way because we've had quite a few registrations this morning. But it is August, and where we are in Southeast London, it's very hot as well. So thank you all for joining us this morning. Right, I'm going to start now. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. My name is Gary Parker. Like I've just said, others may join, but you're all here on time, so we'll go ahead. This morning, we're looking at the whole issue of public procurement, which is a big area. This presentation will take about about 50 minutes, hopefully. But there's a lot of information packed into this, and it's quite a big area. And it changes quite a lot. This is a general presentation. It's not a legal opinion or a consultancy opinion. It's just general information about these issues because it's very widespread. And as you will see, there's a lot of issues you have to take into account. So I'm going to load the presentation now. And here we go. Can everybody see that? Okay, I'll take that as a yes. Can you see that? Yeah, good. Okay, so these are our contact details. If you want to buy a copy of this presentation, it's £50 plus VAT, so that's £60. But as you'll see, it's well worth the value of it. And it's also being recorded and will go on our YouTube channel within the next two weeks. I'm on leave next week, but hopefully one of my colleagues will be able to get this out there. So you can watch it on our YouTube channel. Just go onto YouTube and it's at CNT Associates. And there's lots of other presentations on that site as well. Here are our contact details. So CNT as a company has been in business for over 20 years. I've been the managing director for about 10 years. We've got offices in London and the northwest of England, and we've raised over £30 million for our clients. We work for a wide range of organizations from small businesses and sole traders right up to much bigger organizations. And more recently, we've worked with two local authorities in Southeast London delivering business support services, and we're hopeful of doing some more of that. If you're based in Southeast London, we've got some events taking place in the next few months. If you go onto our Eventbrite page, CNT Associates, you'll see two events, one in September in Bexley, London Borough Bexley, which is a partnership event with the council and various other partners, including a bank and a large accountancy firm. And then we're going to have an event in the London Borough of Bromley in October, which will be focused on well-being funding, well-being projects, and a whole range of issues around that. Both of those events are free. So check out our YouTube channel for information. So let's move on then. What does the tender process involve? Each tender is different, and it depends on the contract in question and the buyer's specification and the specific priorities and evaluation. Uh, the tender stage in the bidding process is where you need to excuse me a second. Sorry, I'm just having a slight technical problem here. Right, that's better. Okay. Um, each tender process is different depending on the contract in question and the buyer-specific priorities and evaluation criteria. The tender stage in the bidding process is where you need to explain how you will deliver the contract, including your technical solutions and pricing proposals. So there's various requirements from tendering organisation depending on the scope and the value of the tender. And this is your opportunity to stand out against your competitors and showcase why you are the right organisation to deliver the contract. Contract opportunities often involve competitive bidding, where the goal is not just to offer the lowest price, but to demonstrate how works or services will be delivered to a high quality. Is this constantly changing? One of the things that well, I guess the new government, but the new Prime Minister has said already about public procurement, is that they are going to change some of the regulations to make them more um, amenable for smaller businesses. And one of the things they are looking at on to include is that it creates British-based jobs, which for most small businesses in the UK won't be a problem, and there may be other changes as well. Um, Contract opportunities often involve competitive bidding, where the goal is not just to offer the lowest price, but demonstrate how works or services will be delivered to a high quality. Um, Here are some ways that you can do that. Um, the government have got a find a tender service, but you'll need your gov.uk one login to use this service. So most people tend to have these because you usually use it to access your tax information. If you haven't got one, then there's another link there on gov.uk contracts finder. You can use that service. And we also offer that here at CNT. We monitor tenders, contract awards, review funding opportunities, and set up regular tender email alerts. So another one, if you're London based, you can um, look at the London tender portal. Even if you're not London based, there's links to other areas through that. But this is one of the biggest ones. I could have put a lot of links on here about this. For most of you, the gov.uk contract finder should suffice. And if you're based in London or want other specialist opportunities, check out the other links that I've given you there. Here are some of the legislation um, that has taken place, has been enacted in the last 10 years or so around procurement. If you suffer from insomnia, here's some good cures for it. Because there's a lot of detailed stuff. I'm not going to go through this morning. Because we just haven't got the time. But there's some of the legislation. It does show how governments are trying to take this seriously. But as you can imagine, there are a number of complexities around this. So One of the ways that we can help you is modeling your application. If you sign up with your email address, so you may be on our mailing list already, we'll give you a customized quote on how we can help you, including costs and support. You can buy this presentation that's on here today. It's £50 plus VAT. Please message us or email us if you want to buy it. We can write you a funding application. We research and write funding research reports for you detailing which funders can support your business, organization, or charity. We can coach you in bid writing and help you produce model applications. And we can work in partnership with you or others to write applications. And we can work with you on a draft application if you've already produced one. So just moving on, we'll look at some of the more recent legislation on this. Um, the last most significant one was the Procurement Act 2023, which was actually introduced into law last year. Um, and it introduced a number of changes. Um, the most significant one was a simplified contract award process. There's two main procedures, the open procedure and the competitive flexible procedure, replacing many of the more prescriptive ones. So there's a number of aspects of this which we're going to look at shortly. Increase flexibility for contracting authorities within certain limits. The Act allows contracting authorities to design their own bespoke award process for complex procurements. And there's greater emphasis on transparency and accountability. And within a certain time frame, you are able to ask for feedback on your tender if it's unsuccessful and you want to do that. Some of the other things that were introduced in that act were enhanced protection of competition, stronger rules on the exclusion of suppliers where they pose a risk to public procurement, including a new mandatory exclusion ground for suppliers involved in cartel activity and a central debarment register. What that means is that's around price fixing. If it's proved that it's usually larger organizations that there's an element of price fixing, they can be excluded from a tender round or indeed altogether if that is proved, of course, which is not always easy. Streamline procedures for suppliers, barriers for small suppliers, and voluntary and community organizations are removed with strengthened provisions for prompt payment. So there is payment legislation now enacted where you can claim interest within certain periods from suppliers, from tenderers if they don't pay you on time. Early supplier engagement. Public bodies are encouraged to share details of upcoming procurement projects within the next 18 months in what is known as a pipeline notice. So, in other words, local authorities have got to, or other encouraged to put out a document stating what they're likely to be tendering or procuring for within the next 18 months. Central digital platform. Central digital platform will be used to enhance the existing find a tender service, making it easier to find and bid for contracts. That's not really been enacted yet, although those sites that I gave you the details of are very good sources of information. Right, let's move on to a few. One of the things that puts people off this is a lot of jargon. So I'm going to try and demystify some of the main jargon. I haven't got time to do all of it this morning because that will be a very long exercise. Contract notice. This is one of the most common terms. A notice published announcing a public sector organisation's intention to contract for specific goods or services. So they'll put a notice out there saying that they want to tender for a specific for specific goods or services. They'll usually put it on one of those tender sites that I've already mentioned. Another one is an IEO, an initial expression of interest. High value public sector contracts are advertised via Finder Tender or Contract Finder, and usually start with asking parties interested in bidding to write and express their interests in bidding. Sometimes it's a kind of mini tender, but what you tend to find with very high value contracts is that is a way of sifting smaller or inexperienced organizations, that is, organizations with a very limited or no track record of delivering public services. So you should be aware of that. One of the other things with high value contracts is you never know if they're operating procurement rules, and that usually means that you won't be able to bid for more than 40% of your annual turnover. So bear that. That doesn't apply all the time, but it may apply to higher value contracts. Um, Invitation to tender, an ITT, is a formal communication from a public sector organisation to a supplier inviting it to submit a tender. So this can be a general notice sent out to anybody who's interested, or sometimes it can be more specific, depending on the circumstances and the value. Another common term is meet, most economically advantageous tender. Um, the optimum combination of whole life costs and benefits assessed against a predetermined evaluation awards criteria. So what that means is the tender is assessed around a number of areas, but price is still the most significant factor, and that is followed by social value, which I'm going to talk about briefly soon, which is between 12 and 20%. It has increased, but price is still the main issue for most organizations. But it's not the only one, because most local authorities and other public sector tenders want quality services as well. So you have to do your homework on these. Here's a few more. A PQQ, pre-qualification questionnaire. That's similar to an IEO. It's a questionnaire used by public sector organisations to check the suitability of suppliers and shortlist ones to be invited to tender. So it's an initial sifting process, which is, I think, on the whole, this is a good thing, because if you get through it, fine, you're in the second round and you've got a really realistic chance of getting funding. If you haven't, at least you've not spent a lot of time writing a very detailed tender document, which is not going to succeed. So I think on the whole, they are good things. An RFI, request for information, that's an alternative term for PQQ, pre-qualification questionnaire. Specification, these are some of the most common terms. That's a description of the essential technical requirements for goods or services to be delivered under the contract, including the methods for checking that the requirements have been met. So this is the scoping document of what you have to deliver, and what the funders or the commissioners want for this, because that's the whole idea of commissioning and tendering, is they put out a description of the services that they require, and basically you've got to match that as closely as you can, and say how you're going to do it. And there could often be a whole range of other requirements around that, like risk strategies, etc., etc. SQ is a selection questionnaire. And it's essentially a set of standardized questions to fairly and transparently assess if the supplier meets minimum standards. So again, that's another form of PQQ. It's an initial sift of organizations that are applying to see if they've got the skills, capability, and possibly track record for to deliver the minimum standards required by the commissioners. Um, Transfer of undertakings, protection of employment, TUPE. These are regulations designed to protect the rights of employees in a transfer situation where there is a change in supplier, often when contracts are tendered. What that means is if another organisation has been delivering that tender and it's awarded to another organisation, it could be your organisation, that you may well have some liabilities to employ um, the employees who were delivering the contract under the previous supply. There may be other liabilities as well, like pensions. This is quite a complex area. So I'm not going to go too much into this, but for most of the businesses I work with, it's usually not an issue, but on potentially on larger contracts, it most certainly is. So if you ever see that, you need to get some specialist advice on what your rights and liabilities are. And of course, you can ask the tendering organization about that as well. Um, Before you bid, these are some things to review and determine. Uh, the bid, no bid process to determine whether the opportunity is right for your business. Um, is the This is again where you've got to do your homework. Is the bid winnable? Who is the incumbent? What they're supposed to do under the new regulations, under the Procurement Act 2025, is they're supposed to put information online about contract delivery. Who's delivering the contracts, and are they delivering to the specification? So that's one thing you can check if that information is out there. Although I have to say I haven't seen much of it yet myself, but uh, this is what's starting to develop. So you need to find out some more about the existing contract. Some of the bigger organizations that I've worked for have kind of made a rule of thumb that they're not going to apply for contracts with any organization they've not had a relationship with or delivered services for previously. Um, because they view uh, trying to do it from scratch as a very uh, difficult and time-consuming process for them. For smaller organizations, you might not be hidebound by some of those things, but it's good to know what others are doing. So you've got to work out, have you got a realistic chance of getting this tender? Have you got any familiarity with the organization or tendering authority that you're bidding to? Many times these days they have online events and you're able to ask questions, so it's a lot better than it used to be. Um, is the deadline achievable? Can you deliver all the elements of service? And does a tender require you to provide accreditation references? So if you've got a quality standard, they might ask you to provide a copy of that. For example, we've got one called Safe Supplier, which we have to renew every year, and that's an audit of a whole range of areas from environmental to financial um, uh, stability that they assess before you're re-awarded. Um, and you may have to provide some accreditations and policy documents as well, of course, which you may not currently have. So you need to work out, are you able to deliver all these elements of services, and have you got the skills and capability for doing that? Um, there are several ways you can check out the information. Um, including checking the information within the contract notice, uh, checking the ITT document within the tender pack, a search and find for eligibility, pass, fail, or minimum requirements is often very useful. What you can do now for those of you that use AI, because I'm going to talk about right at the end some ways you can use AI on tendering, is to feed the information into an AI platform and ask them to detail all the key requirements of delivery for this particular tender. You can do some other things as well, which we'll look at later. Um, you can ask the buyer or authority a clarification question via the tender portal, because most of them now will have this. They'll have a tender portal open during the tendering process. It usually closes a few days before the contract deadline, where you can ask them questions about the submission that you're making. Um, you've also got to consider, are there any potential weaknesses in your service solution against a competitor? Uh, and find out who that competitor is, if you can. Um, Hopefully that information will be publicly available. Have you delivered high quality services to clients in the past? Uh, Therefore, gathering your evidence, examples, and client testimonials is key. If you've delivered similar services and you can get a testimonial, especially from another buying authority, like another local authority or agency, then that's a good thing to do if you can do it. Um, the other things you need to consider is reading the whole set of tender documents. To win a tender, it's essential to understand the scope of the contract and the customer's expectations. So I've already covered some of these, but there's a whole range of aspects to this, including the ITT document, um, the invitation to tender, the buyer specification, the evaluation criteria, which they'll usually give you, because it's usually done on a point scoring basis, and certain aspects of the tender get more points than others. Um, and then the clarification log, which I've just mentioned, where you can ask specific questions to the buyer or tendering authority. Writing style. This is very, very important. One of the things that we have on our YouTube channel, our most popular presentation is how to write a funding application, which we'll probably be delivering again soon. We're working on an updated version of it right now. Um, but placing the benefits before the feature in a sentence. Uh, um, uh, Keeping sentence length under 25 words, write in Arial font 11 unless otherwise questions. No long words or jargon. Use simple, straightforward language. What we tend to do here, there's a number of us, and if we're writing a tender document or a grant application, we let one of our colleagues review it, who's got no previous knowledge of it. And if they understand it, we've done our job. If they don't understand it, or if it seems too complex, then basically we rewrite it. So if you can get somebody within your organization, if you've got anybody, if you haven't got anybody, try and get a friend or some other colleague to review it for you if they're willing to do so. Um, One of the things, or some of the things you need to check with around compliance, because this is a big thing now. People think this makes life easier, but it's not really. Word and page counts, because often on many applications now you'll say project description 300 words, 500 words. And it depends what you're delivering but if it's a complex delivery ch chain, or you're delivering a number of services, trying to get all that information into 300 to 500 words is a challenge. So you really need to think that one through. Um, It's the same with page counts, required font size and formatting. As we just said, it's usually Arial 11. The evaluation criteria, how are they scoring your application? Any policies, evidence, and attachments that are mandatory, because it could be, for example, health and safety policies, or a range of other policies, environmental policies, for example, that the funder may require. It is vital to read the questions carefully and fully understand the specifications, as failure to answer clearly in any section can cost you the bid. Um, yeah, you've got to read the questions first and then cross-reference it against the guidance if you're unsure. Um, One of the main ways that professional business bid writers use to develop a bid is storyboarding or structuring an answer. Uh, when responding to an ITT, it's important to work collaboratively to plan out and storyboard each response. What does this involve? Essentially, you need to set out a structure and a content plan for each response. This should be based on addressing every single element of the question alongside the evaluation criteria. So you've got to set out how your answer must set out how you are meeting the criteria that's being set out. Uh, this will ensure you know what to do to achieve an excellent score whilst hitting the compliance criteria for each response. So you've got to do it within your word limit, and you've got to, as accurately and precisely as you can, uh, answer in a way that meets the specification and the evaluation criteria. Um, Another term often used is standard collateral. Um, uh, One of the things, particularly as I just mentioned some of these things, you might use to save some time, is come up with some common questions, common policies that you may be required to produce. For example, I just mentioned health and safety, quality, data protection, equality, and diversity. If you haven't got this, I often come across this problem with some smaller or businesses or organizations that haven't bid for public sector contracts. If you haven't got these policies, we do provide a service where we can help people develop it. But another way you can do that, as I'm a member as well, is to join the Federation of Small Businesses, because um, the if you join, and as long as you're a member, it costs about £200 a year, then you've got access to the legal uh, business website, and that includes a lot of standard policies like equality policies, and even some other ones like modern slavery policies, which are a requirement now on some tenders. They have model versions of that. That's a very cost-effective way of getting that information, and of course, you do get the benefit of the other services that they provide as well. So that's a cost-effective way of doing it. I mean, we do it as well, but we charge for this service because often we're trying to develop policies that are specific to that organization. But if you want more general policies, joining FSB is a very good way to get these, because you can always customize them yourself, of course. Um, Focus on whether it really answers the question rather than simply cutting and pasting into the document. So you've got to ensure that whatever you're attaching bears a proper relationship to the other information you're providing. Um, Writing style, pay attention to key requirements of the service specification and the evaluation criteria to understand what the evaluators are looking for and what to focus on. So, reviewing the specification is quite important. And as I say, as I just said, there are other tools out there that can help you clarify that. Look at each of the key elements of each of the method statement questions, and use these to storyboard or structure your response. So the method statement is how you're going to deliver the service. And you can use that series of questions to storyboard or structure your response to it. Each response will be evaluated separately, usually, so avoid cross-referencing to other answers. So you've got to put your answer to the question in that particular section, even if you're repeating yourself. Check if any of the method statements allow supplementary supporting evidence. My experience is they don't often do this, but if you are allowed to provide other diagrams, because for example, it could be organizational structure, policies, or spreadsheets. If you've got those, because it's not usually a requirement, but if you've got those and are able to do it, then that just enhances your case. But again, review those before you submit them. And make sure your responses are written in plain English and that you proofread to avoid errors or inconsistencies. Again, proofreading is something you can use online tools to do and AI. So that's made that aspect of it easier. Reviewing before you submit your responses, um, we recommend carrying out an in-depth review process. So this is roughly what I just mentioned a few minutes ago. Assign a reviewer. So it's somebody else. If you're the writer, somebody else, ideally someone who understands the technical aspects to analyze the written response and provide feedback and comments. So they may not understand the precise nature of the bid, but they may understand some of the technical aspects of delivery. Act as a compliance check, uh, determining that the bid has been completed, following the ITT instructions and the buyer requirements. So just make sure that everything, or that they make sure that everything that is required is in that tender. And this is a strong piece of advice. Don't take any suggestions to improve answers personally, because we work with a lot of clients, and if my clients say something can be better and they write a better uh, response, we're always happy to take that on board, because the issue is not our personal pride, it's around writing a successful tender. And often it's down to the detail, the scored, and on a lot of tenders, the scoring is very close. So the gap between success and failure is very, very narrow usually. So any detail is important. Um, Social value, I mentioned this earlier, is built into most tenders. And again, the government are changing this as well. This is about demonstrating your commitment to leaving a positive legacy that extends beyond your contract. The social value element within bids accounts for 10 to 20% of the overall score. Uh, you may be asked to outline your commitment to delivering apprenticeships, for example, taking part in outreach projects or demonstrating your record on carbon reduction. This is beyond uh, uh, strictly what is required within the tender. But if, this is again where smaller organizations can get some advantage here, because if you're a locally based organization, it's far more likely you're going to have a local supply chain. You're going to work with others, buy local supplies from others. You could be taking on local apprentices. You could be working with volunteers. So that aspect of the tender now is 10 to 20% of the overall evaluation score. So that's very, very important. And that could make the difference between success and failure. Like I've just said, often it's down to a few points. Um, Social value pledges must be relevant to the work you are providing and linked to the buyer's own social value strategy. So if it's a local authority, for example, then you need to check out what their um, uh, social value strategy is. That's usually available via, if it's a local authority, for example, the website, but many other organizations, if it's a bigger organization or a housing association, they will have a social value policy. Uh, Doing research into this will help you deliver a strong social value proposal. Um, Again, carbon reduction plans are now more common. They're not always asked. It depends what you're tendering for. But you need to document a carbon reduction plan. Sometimes some organizations ask for green travel plans as well. Again, there are many sources online you can get a template from, or check out the Federation of Small Businesses site. But it really does depend what you're doing, because a lot of the things around carbon emissions are more relevant to some businesses than others. If you're um, uh, delivering or want to provide delivery services, for example, and you use vehicles, then this will very much apply to you. If it's more online services, it may be less crucial. You've got to check it out to see what's in the tender, but at least if it doesn't, you'll know what these things are. Um, Evaluation criteria. There are two stages which are normally evaluated separately. Um, for example, if the standard selection questionnaire requests suppliers evidence risk management policies, a minimum standard for selection, the award criteria for quality evaluation may request suppliers demonstrate how they will apply their risk management policy to identify and manage the risks associated with the contract. So you've got to have, you may be required to have a risk management policy. Again, it depends on what you do. There are many templates around that you can develop, and you may be able to use AI to do some assessment on this. But assessment of suppliers' responses to the evaluation criteria is made solely on the information that the supplier provides in either the standard selection questionnaire or written bids in response to the invitation to tender. So in the first part of this, they're just going off what you say, basically. No decision should be made on a previous experience or knowledge of working with a supplier in the past. So what what that what that requirement is saying is you've got to consider what is in front of you. There may be organisations applying who've had this contract in the past but were not recontracted for whatever reason, or they may be inexperienced. But the evaluating authority can only take into account what is in front of them, not they shouldn't be taking you shouldn't be making decisions based on previous experience or knowledge. All questions should have a sound purpose, help assess supplier suitability, and be underpinned by a defined method of scoring, which can be pre-published to the supplier. So they'll give you the scoring system most of the time, not all the time, not exclusively, but most of the time, and certainly for any contracts of real value, they'll be supplying this. Selecting providers. In order to select suppliers for tender stage, a standard selection questionnaire is often used, which contains the selection criteria covering supplier legal and organizational status, economic and financial standing, and elements of technical and professional liability. So that's all the main requirements. In other words, your company or business numbers, the any legal requirements, economic and financial standing. So they might ask for sets of accounts. They don't always do that. Additional selection criteria may be added to cover other aspects relevant to the contract requirements, such as risk management, which I've already mentioned, health and safety, quality assurance, environmental management, diversity and equality, and professional capacity. So if you're successful at the SSQ stage, you'll be shortlisted for tender stage and will receive an invitation to tender for the goods or services. So this is very much the first part. It's the sifting. This is for bigger tenders. For smaller ones, that may not be the case, but any substantial amount over probably about 50,000 and maybe 100,000 in some cases, they may require a standard selection questionnaire or a PQQ, which sifts out organizations that, in the opinion of the buyer, may not be able to deliver. Uh, the award. If you're successful, you will go on to the ITT standard, which criteria, which is the invitation to tender. The ITT sets out the methodology that the authority will employ in evaluating a supplier's price, written bid submissions, and any presentations in response to the specific specification and award criteria. So they'll lay out what you have to deliver and any specific requirements related to that. Uh, Following this evaluation, a decision will be made on which supplier will be awarded a contract. Price and quality are split into two high-level categories to be evaluated. So your main three um, uh, evaluation areas are price, quality, and social value in a nutshell. Um, but price and quality are split into two specific categories to be evaluated separately. Each will be given a maximum percentage score, which is weighted according to the relative importance placed on it. So the buyer will decide what the weighting is with relation to this, and they will tell you at the end of the evaluation process, the two percentages will be brought together in the full evaluation model to result in an overall percentage score for each supplier. So they will evaluate the responses that you've made, and then the percentages will be harmonized to get a final score. All procurement activity now has a heavy focus on savings and efficiencies. It is common for procurement to start with a 50% price, 38% quality, and 12% social value split as a basis. This can be changed, but in my experience, that is, as it stands, that is the most common framework. 50% price, 38% quality, and 12% social value. Although in some cases, it depends what you're delivering as well. Social value could be up to 20%. So there may be reductions on the other two. Uh, but this can be changed to any combination depending on the requirements and objectives of the particular procurement. Evaluating the price. The evaluation of charges will be based on the supplier's response to the requirements of a pricing schedule designed for the specific contract. So price should be based on the total cost of the goods or services over the duration of the entire contract, just the purchase price. So you've got to uh, consider all aspects of cost when quoting a price and for the full period of the contract. How are bids scored? As well as understanding the criteria of the bids, you also need to know how the criteria is scored. Um, you will likely have a very healthy competition when submitting a bid. So knowing how the bid will be assessed is imperative. And I'm going to outline how the bid scoring mechanism works. Uh, on price scoring, typically a certain percentage or a number of points are attributed to price, and the supplier bids are scored against preset criteria, thus allowing tenderers to be ranked in line with the percentage or points attributed to them. So you'll get your tender will be evaluated on a kind of pricing mechanism. I was involved in one last year where the organization I was working with hit the full price scoring mechanism evaluation score, which was 30% in that case. But they didn't get the tender because a rival organization scored better, not much better, but on quality. So that's how close it can be. So this is very important. Um, Quality evaluation. Uh, Awards criteria relating to quality depend upon the nature of procurement. Some examples include technical merit of the goods or services. So if you're supplying some particular goods, you've got to provide a technical specification, for example, ability to meet the specification. If you've been delivering smaller contracts and you apply for a much bigger one, then you've got to demonstrate how you can meet that. Um, Compliance with contractual terms and conditions, innovative technology. Are you going to use new technology to deliver some aspects? Maybe you can use AI. It kind of depends really on what you're delivering. Project plans and methodologies. If you've got detailed project plans that are clear, um, and reviewable, then that helps a lot. Uh, and then, of course, wider social, economic, and environmental benefits offered to the community. This is where your social value starts to come in. Staffing arrangements, training and development, speed of delivery, maintenance and support offered. So, with quality scoring, suppliers respond to these reward criteria will be assessed using a pre-published scoring mechanism within the tender. So they'll give you the scoring mechanism. Uh, this is a set criteria which suppliers must meet in their responses to achieve certain scores. So you've got to deliver certain things to get the highest score. The score for each questions are converted into a maximum percentage scores for each evaluation criteria in the full evaluation model. So a percentage score is awarded for each of the criteria, and then that is evaluated at the end in the full evaluation model. Standstill. The standstill period is a defined period between the notice of the contract award decision and the award of the contract. The purpose of the standstill period is to allow unsuccessful tenderers to consider the feedback on the submission. So if you're unsuccessful, you can request feedback. And it gives unsuccessful tenderers an opportunity to ask for further information or call for a review of the decision. That's more difficult because you've got to have some evidence to base that on. You can't just say, oh, well, we lost, so it should be reviewed. You've got to have something to base that on. These guidelines can be used to notify the successful and unsuccessful tenderers at the start of the standstill period. So it's a period usually of about 2 weeks before the contract is fully awarded. Uh, Feedback. All suppliers tendering for public contracts are entitled to receive feedback from the contracting authority on the award criteria and any subdivision thereof, including price and quality. So you can ask for feedback on those issues. The reason for the decision, including the characteristics and relative advantages of the winning bid. So in the case I mentioned, they actually gave the scoring of the other bid, but the overall price and quality scores obtained a breakdown for any sub-criteria, and the name of the successful supplier who's been awarded the contract. Um, your overall price and quality score, a breakdown of any sub-criteria and how you can improve your bid. So you can get direct feedback on your bid, how it's scored, and a breakdown of it so you can improve in future. My advice is to always, if you succeed, fine, but if you don't succeed, always ask for feedback. Um, there is now as well what's called a right to challenge, because some big organizations are very adept at this because they've got the resources to do it. Again, suppliers tendering for public contracts have the right to challenge a procurement decision if they have a reason to believe that the decision is unfair or not transparent. Your right to challenge applies through the procurement processes and is not limited to the standstill period, i.e., the award of the contract period I've just mentioned. You can challenge public procurement decisions at the point you first became aware of any issue. There are set However, there are set time limits on when you can challenge procurement decisions. They will all be in the invitation to tender and the associated documents. So we're coming to the end of this now. So the next steps are to review the presentation, undertake further research, start to develop model applications, contact other organizations, or review the website for further information. There's our website address there. I'm now going to very briefly talk about how you can use AI to write applications. Most funders will allow you to use AI now, but if you get AI to do everything, they're going to have a lot of very similar bids to contend with. I mean, certainly some of the bigger funders or some of the grant funders, like the lottery, for example, have lots of AI written bids. So we would advise you to write the core of your application. This may change in the future, but you can use AI for strategy development or developing a framework to answer questions or developing a specific budget. But much information obtained from AI is of a general or standardized nature, and your own further input is always necessary. So here's 4 things that you can do. Um, Analyze the bid requirements, feed the tender documents into AI, extract deadlines, eligibility criteria, scoring mechanisms, and mandatory requirements. You can do that because that will save you a lot of time. You'll still have to study the documents, but this will give you an initial overview. And there's a prompt there: summarize the eligibility criteria and scoring methodology for this tender document. Generate draft applications. You can do stuff on the draft that you're working on, like executive summaries, project delivery plans, case studies, value for money explanations, and risk management and governance frameworks. Um, and again, there is a prompt there to help you write a method statement if you need to do that. So that's for a public sector contract. The third way is to improve and prove content. AI tools like Grammarly or ChatGPT can check for clarity, grammar, and flow, particularly around figures. If you're mentioning figures that are in one answer, one figure, and then in another answer, another figure, when they should be both the time the same, they will pick up on that. It will help you to reduce jargon or overly technical language, because for some services, like for example in wellbeing, uh, they would the language probably needs to be a bit softer, um, and offer tone adjustment suggestions, more confident, more community focused, etc., etc. So again, that can be quite important, because remember what I said, it's down to 1 or 2 points usually. So any little thing that can help you. Uh, this is always something of interest. Ask AI to simulate a review based on published scoring guidance, because there's a lot of published scoring guidance out there. So you can write your bid and get feedback on how well your response answers the questions and addresses the evaluation criteria. So if there's something that's publicly available, it will scrape the internet and it will then score your application against these criteria. But it's only a general scoring this because they won't have the actual scoring of that organization. They'll probably find some similar ones. So that's my health warning on that. And finally, um, these are our contact details. I'm now going to stop the share and I'm going to take any questions if you've got any. Right, there's still a few of you there. Any questions?
Hi, Gary. I've posted my question in the.
Yeah. I'm just sorry. I'm just looking at it now.
Okay.
Uh, what information is sought in the PQQ? Does the information change for each tender, or is it standard? Yeah, it's usually kind of standard. That will be. It's like a mini tender, really. So they'll ask you to provide your company or organizational information. They'll ask you to provide details of contracts you've delivered previously. If you've not delivered them directly, then you could, and you've delivered any in partnership, then put those in. And then they will ask you uh, maybe what experience you've had of delivering these services, what the highest value contract was you delivered. So it's all usually pretty kind of standard, but it will change a little depending on the sector that you're in, because what you're being asked for health and social care may not be the same as if you're going to be if you're tendering for some specialist health and safety services. So I hope that answers the questions. But generally, it's all pretty much standard. I think that's the answer in a nutshell. What if you're a startup business? Um, like I said at the beginning, they can only consider what is in front of them. If you get through the PQQ, then you're in with the same chance as everybody else, to be honest. Um, that's the key to it. If you can work on that, if you can also work through a number of the things I've suggested that you do, have your policy documents, um, any quality standard awards. You may be asked for some of these in the PQQ stage, not usually, but you may be asked to provide a health and safety policy or something like that, depending on what you're tendering for. Um, the government are trying to focus on helping startups and others to get these contracts. The other thing I would strongly suggest you work on is the social value, because most small businesses have got more social value than many big businesses. So that is something you might want to focus on, particularly if the government are now saying that's going to be even more important. Like, for example, creating local jobs or creating British jobs. That's quite an important thing, I would say. Um, any other questions from people here? Uh, okay then.
I have a question, sorry.
Nicholas. Okay, Nicholas.
Yeah, hello.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I wanted to know, I run a robotics and coding class for children. I
yeah.
just wanted to know, is there any way to find out how a tender becomes available before it's like released to the public, or how do I establish myself? Because I'm in Bexley as well, so how do I kind of
Yeah.
establish myself?
One thing you can do, because you can probably ask this question, Nicholas, we're having, if you go onto the CNT Associates Eventbrite site,
Yeah.
we're having an event on funding, which is a joint promotion with Bexley Council
Okay.
on the 23rd of September, because there's going to be Bexley Council there, a credit union is
Hmm.
going to be there. A big accountancy firm is going to be there. I'll be speaking, and the council as well. So
Yeah.
you'll be able to get some of that information. But as you're in Bexley, what you should do is go on their website and look up their procurement section. Just search for procurement, because if you register your interest with them, they may send you some information. We did have an event earlier this year where the procurement section from Bexley Council actually came to our event.
Oh,
I don't know whether they'll be represented this time around, but yeah, that's one thing you can do. The other thing you should do is right at the beginning of the presentation, uh, the look at the London Tenders portal, because
okay.
that gives you everything. If you register with that, you'll get a regular notice on what's coming up.
Okay. Portal, London Tendon Portal. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um,
And there's also one for one I'm familiar is I think it's called Kent Tenders, but there may be a link on the London Tender portals to that,
okay.
because
Yeah.
they're in other counties as well, wherever you are. Um, uh, Try and find out the details of your local tender portal.
Okay. Thank you so much. Do you know of any kind of like lower value contracts for youth and community off the top of your head? Since I'm like in the digital skills kind of area, I don't know if you know of any that would be.
Um, yeah, yeah. How's your business constituted? Are you
I'm
a
a,
limited company? Are you a sole
I
trader?
Yeah, yeah. So I've got a limited company, and I currently literally heard about something called an unincorporation association as well. So that one's not non-for-profit. But
Yeah.
currently, how I started off was a limited company, and parents pay me to kind of run the activities for that robotics and coding club in a library in Slade Green.
Right. What I want to offer all of you
Mhm.
on this call is, if you email us, you'll
Yeah.
get a free 20 minutes consultation from us,
Okay.
because
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to tackle this, because
Okay. 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 Yeah.
I do know of some sources you can go
Okay.
for, but we'll be on the call line, and I'm conscious that there's other people now.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so, any other questions from people here today? Because we've run over time now. I would like to thank you all for coming, but three things that I wanted to say. We've got a webinar on funding for wellbeing projects. That's on the 16th of September. We've got a networking event in Bromley on well-being issues. That's on the 20th of October. And we've got this event here at our offices, which is the Engine House in Bexley, with Bexley Council and others on the 23rd of September. All of these are on our Eventbrite site. So if you go onto Eventbrite and look for C&T Associates, all the information, and these are all free as well, by the way. So we're giving very good value here, in my opinion. And so are our partner organizations. So we'd love to see you at some of these events in future. And thank you for coming here today. This presentation will probably be on our YouTube channel in about 2 to 3 weeks' time, if you want to wait that long. And of course, if you want to buy a copy of it, it will cost you £60, £50 plus VAT. But that is, again, that's very good value. You've seen what I packed into that hour with all the links and everything on it. So it will help you to develop your services in this area, and also any general tendering as well, because most tendering processes, whether they're a local authority or others, operate on basically the same basis. There are some differences. There's more detail for public sector contracts, and it's more structured, but many others uh, in the non-profit sector, for example, operate on the same basis. I'll just ask one more time. Anybody else got any other questions while I'm here? Please contact us about your free 20-minute um, consultation with us, and I look forward to seeing some of you at the events we're running soon. So take care for today, and have a good summer.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Take care, everybody. Yes, it's good to talk to you. Contact me, Nicholas.
Yes, I will definitely contact you. Is the email address on Eventbrite and everything?
Yeah, or you can
Okay, yeah,
info@cntassociates.com.
I think I've got that one. Okay, thank
Yeah,
you so much, Gary. And you said there was a yeah, event happening on is it 26th of September?
23rd of September.
23rd.
That's on our Eventbrite site. If you go on
Okay,
Eventbrite, all the
yeah,
details are on there
okay.
and the registration links.
Okay, so thank you so much, Gary. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
take care,
Take
everybody.
care.
Nice to see you again, Margaret. Hope to see you soon. Take care.